Welcome to the Wizards of Ecom, your no-fluff playbook for online success. Each episode is fully packed with actionable tactics you can implement in your business right now. Take your life to a higher level and excel in your online success. It's time to work on you and your business. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Wizards of Ecom podcast. My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I will be your host for the show. On today's episode, we have returning guest and account manager of VTrust on the podcast, Mitchell Jonnson. Welcome back.
Hey, Carlos. Thanks for having me again.
Awesome stuff. Mitchell, and I am saying the name right?
Yep, that's correct. You can just call me Mitch, though. That's all right.
All right, Mitch works. That second L for some reason throws me. But Mitch, this is part of I don't know if we want to call it a series, but like at least three different topics surrounding just best practices for inspection, specifically VTrust inspections that we plan on doing. Basically important types of inspection types and techniques that Amazon sellers should be aware of. And I would say hopefully are deploying in their businesses when working with any factory. But in this case, we're going to be talking about working with a factory in China or Asia, period. Specifically in this episode, we're going to talk about controlling product quality levels. Let me say this. Nowadays, it seems I've been working with VTrust, it seems like since forever, but nowadays it seems you can throw a rock and hit an inspection company. Like it's like, said another way, it's saturated. You have newcomers pouring in every day. I first discovered, I don't know if I touched this in the previous episode, but I first discovered and began using VTrust services religiously after I had been duped, which is rare actually, I found, but I was duped by, let's just say an unscrupulous, since we're going to be proper here, an unscrupulous person from a factory that never even existed to the tune of $81,000 USD. And since that, we'll call it the dreadful day, and I fumbled around with a lot of like half-baked third-party inspection partners. So I wanted to put out here, I've been using your guys' services, if I know correctly, I think 13 years.
Sounds about right. Yeah, from pretty close to the very beginning.
Yeah, for about 13 years. And the main reason why I use your guys, I'll tell you what, I try to tell people this when I'm talking to them about VTrust. And I'm like, look, if you go in there and search for what is the cheapest inspection service I could ever get, you guys don't come up. You're very competitively priced. I don't even think you guys try to portray yourselves as the cheapest option, but I can say that there has not been an even close second place when it comes to just the quality, the professionalism. You guys have literally saved me millions of dollars in like discovering things that I would not have discovered in, pertaining to the quality or something about a product, literal millions of dollars. So, for somebody that has really no clue about, let's just assume that they don't know why the quality of a product is important for an Amazon seller, right? But let alone how to control it. What is it, in your own words, controlling product quality, what does it even mean to an Amazon seller and why is it important? Yeah.
Well, first, I might have to quote you on that millions of dollars figure. I'll forward that to my boss.
For sure.
But yeah. Well, as you know, as you said, being tricked or cheated, it doesn't happen every day, of course, but really all you need is once to be out. Even a small amount of money is pretty discouraging for a lot of people. But, obviously, especially I'm sure for a lot of, mid-level to senior, Amazon sellers, they know that they want to spend most of their time growing their business, focusing on like SEO and reaching new customers and things like that. So you really want to have your quality control taken care of, so you don't have to, put a lot of effort into that all the time, every time. You want a system that can take care of itself, so you don't have to worry about that. You can focus more on growing. So there are some things people can do that when you're dealing with a supplier, whether it's China or Greater Asia or literally anywhere in the world, there are some certain things that are really important to do, and experienced buyers, which in this case are your Amazon sellers, and larger companies, they do these things right off the bat to make sure they're not running into road bumps that they don't want to deal with later. So I think we'll talk about 3 key things that are really, really important. You want to take care of right off the bat before getting into anything. So a lot of people will go to a trade show. Those used to exist. And they'll meet some suppliers. They'll see, really nice booth at this trade show. They're dressed well, and they show you some samples. Samples look really good. So someone might say, okay, I like this. Get me one of these exactly like this. But what a lot of people find out is it doesn't work quite that simply. Some people may, go and visit the factory and it doesn't look quite as good as they were expecting, or their order arrives and it's not what they expected. So for the 3 things that can help you deal with this stuff, because a factory can be capable of almost any level of quality, low to high. So what you want to do first, I think we mentioned this last time. Number 1 is your golden sample, which is your approved sample. So you should have your supplier send you a sample according to what you want. And you should check it out, make sure everything about it is what you want. The materials, the colors, the dimensions, thickness, length, width, all of those things, as much detail as you can get. This is going to be your universal language, whether your supplier's in China, in South America, or right there in the US even, it doesn't matter. So it should represent everything that you expect your final product to be. And there are things you can add to this depending on what your product is to help support it. But basically, this is going to be your benchmark for everything in the future, and also for improving it later when you want to change it up. So what you can do, after you have approved this sample, your golden sample, you want to leave one sample with the factory so that they can always reference that. If you want to place another order, make some changes, and possibly also with your inspection company, so they can reference that also when they're going to check out your order for you, and keep one for yourself as well. This can help you to make sure you know exactly what to expect, and you hopefully won't be surprised later on. So again, number 1 is your golden sample. You should always have one of these. Don't just look on a website and send them a screenshot of the product that you want and say, give me one of these, make it high quality, and give me 500. It's not going to work out.
I mean, the golden sample though, I know it's not exactly what we're trying to get into today, but it's really interesting. Can you elaborate on when is the right time to do that, and how do you? I'm imagining there's a service that you hire specifically for that, or what are the mechanics there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of Amazon sellers, they're going to be doing probably ODM manufacturing, original design manufacturer. So the factory has a catalog of products available. You can modify design, have them stamp your logo on it, and send it to you. So a lot of, especially, new Amazon sellers will go that route. If you have your own design, they can probably also do that for you. But before you're placing your order, you want to ask them to send you a sample in advance. This is your research period. Some people will have their sample sent to them in their home country, which is, especially right now, not cheap. Shipping costs are higher than normal. So if you do have an inspection company like VTrust, you can ask them to do a sample check for you. So that's an actual service that a lot of inspection companies will do. And they'll actually run the sample through, the full inspection checklist. They'll check it for workmanship, function and safety tests, marking, labeling. They'll check the packaging for you to make sure, and send you a full report for that. and they should have, good quality photos and videos to accompany it, so that while you're not exactly there, it should be the next best thing. So you want to make sure you approve your sample, establish this standard before you place your order. You don't want to be halfway through the production process when you do that.
And let me interrupt right there. So I'm communicating with the factory. I want to save time. I want to save money. I just want to be more overall efficient. And because I'm one of those people that have always, received the samples to me, and you hit the nail on the head with really, really expensive and long shipping times right now. So what would I do to take advantage of this golden sample? Do I reach out to VTrust and say, hey, look, I want to secure a golden sample. Let me connect you with my factory. Or do I just don't introduce you to my factory and tell my factory, hey, mail my sample to, and then you provide me an address? How does that part work?
Right. Yeah. So I actually had a guy do this very recently. He's looking to get into FBA, and he approached us and asked us to do a sample check for him because he doesn't want to have it sent all the way to his country. The shipping costs are, maybe twice or three times what a sample check service would cost. So at this point, you don't need to connect us to the factory itself. We will provide you an address to give to your supplier. The supplier can mail that to us via, a lot of different courier services around here. And so we receive it in our headquarters. We check it in our in-house lab with one of our technical managers, and send you the report. And after that, you might decide, I like this, I'm going to move ahead with my order, or I'm not quite sure about it, I want to tweak some things and establish a slightly different sample. But yeah, approach an inspection company, tell them I want a sample check. They will give you the address, and your factory can just ship one or two or maybe three samples, depending on the product, to the inspection company, and they can check it out for you.
A few things come to mind there, and I'm sure you've seen this. So I mean, I have a lot of times, like when I just meet a factory and we get past, let's call it the small talk, which I think is really important, but we get past the small talk and they're very confident that they can produce the highest quality wine aerator for me. And I'm convinced that they have the experience to do it, but they don't have on hand the exact, which in my mind comes to mind when I hear golden sample, on hand to send me as a sample. And in the past, what's happening is they're sending me what they see as their best foot forward on the sample that they happen to have in their showroom. And it's kind of unsaid, like, look, yeah, obviously yours will have this color or this whatever, like we described, and we'll go over that. That doesn't work as a golden sample, correct?
Yeah, you're right. That's, if you're trying to establish yourself as like, a big seller, you want to establish your business, that's not good enough. Because like, as you might be putting down up to $100,000 on an order. You don't want to find out later that it's not what you want to sell. So yeah, if they say, oh, it's going to have your color, you want to make sure they understand what your color is. And the only way to do that is to get a sample with that done, because they can say anything.
So is there room for something like, because if I want them to make a one-off or a very, very micro run for me to approve a mass production run and get a golden sample out of it, is there, before paying all that, I may want to see like, hey, look, send me something you got, like show me your best foot forward, and it's that other sample. Can I also have that sample sent, that initial, definitely not golden sample, but just this one-off sample sent for you guys just to look at it? And, you might come back and say, Carlos, man, this thing's got 80% lead, and it's a, you know what I mean? It's a wine aerator. Like, this doesn't work. At that point, I won't even attempt to get a golden sample out of them. Is there room for that?
Yeah, there's lab testing services that can check for those things. Those have to be done off-site though. It's a separate service because it involves a lot of like sensitive instruments, and so our on-site lab is mostly for sample checking, doing some tests for like apparel, things like that, lighting stuff. But for sensitive like chemical analysis, that'll be in our full-size laboratory elsewhere.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, if you just want like a view of the sample to get an idea of, basic quality, actual findings, then that's also a possibility.
Okay. I kind of rabbit holed on that, like the golden sample thing, because I really I thought it was genius, and I don't know why I had not heard of it prior to our last podcast interview, and since then that's been top of mind. So I cut you off. I don't know if you remember where we left off there, but if not, I really wanted to also get into, and this might tie into where you were at, what are the different things that can have an effect or an impact, influence quality on a product that you're looking for?
Yeah, a lot of things, depending on what you want from your supplier, they're going to be looking for different materials from different suppliers. And they're going to be looking for opportunities at every corner to save costs for themselves, which they're not doing this maliciously. They're just trying to run an efficient business most of the time. So if you don't specify something, don't count on them doing it. That's probably one of the most important things to remember. Which ties into the second thing that you want to do for your quality, which is using various kinds of spec sheets or data sheets to support what should be in your product. It should tie in exactly with your golden sample. So depending on your product, there are different types of sheets. So for example, if you have an electronic product, you're going to have a CDF, which is a construction data form. So it is fairly complex. Not going to lie, it's a lot of work, but this is work you're going to be doing at the front end. It's going to save you a lot of headaches later on down the road. So your construction data form is similar to, like a bill of materials. It's got a list of every material you've got. It's got a list of every component, the part number that corresponds with it, the manufacturer of that component if they have to source it, and the technical data for any performance. So you want your supplier to follow this. This is the blueprint for the product you're having them make for you. So it makes sense. It's like building a house. You don't just say, build me a really big house that's really strong and looks good. That means different things to different people. So when they tell you we can make the best quality, you'll love it. Your customers will love it. It's the best one on the market. This is the best one we have. Those words, in a business sense, mean literally nothing unless you have specific data or measurements tied to them.
Do you feel that there's a dollar threshold? I'm trying to word this in a way that the answer won't be it depends, but do you feel like there's a dollar threshold before that comes into play? I feel like most people I know, even some successful ones that sell, like as you mentioned yourself, even with your skills, that sort of form is complicated. So understanding like the type of sand and glaze and all this other stuff that's used on a product, I might not even know the questions to ask to obtain that information, let alone the form to put it in. How does VTrust help with that?
I suppose for, people who are just getting into FBA or just Amazon in general, they're probably not going to be going with a super complicated product like a wireless charger. But there are templates available online that people can look at for electronics. Obviously, it's best to have some kind of engineer in your corner who can provide this for you, because a lot of it is also safety. You don't want to cobble something together that might end up electrocuting somebody. But you usually when we have a product like this, we'll ask the our client, do you have a CDF? Do you have a bill of materials? Do you have a tech pack for your apparel? Because that's usually the easiest thing to use to check the items. And a lot of factories understand this too. So they will ask someone who's ordering something, do you have your product specs? Obviously, if they are dealing with, a new Amazon seller, they may not expect you to know this stuff, and they might try to simplify it, which maybe they're trying to be nice, but in the end, it's not really going to benefit you if something unexpected comes up.
Right. So if somebody's getting a garlic press,
Mhm.
then or a silicone baking mat, and they're just starting off and it's not complicated, that's one thing. But in the more complicated products, I would imagine in the more complicated products, you have to have that just to make sure you have the right certifications and stuff like that to be able to legally and safely sell it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those simpler items, like let's say the silicone, cookware, you want to communicate to your supplier, exactly which market you're going to be selling this in. For example, the U.S. market. So you want to ask them, do you have the certifications to produce products that conform with U.S. market requirements? It's like safety stuff, FDA requirements if it contacts food, ASTM, which it gets complicated. If you're going to sell in California, you want California 65, which tests for lead and heavy metals. And if they say yes, you want to make sure that they can provide certificates that show that yes, we do have this certification and can produce a safe product for you.
You mentioned that there was templates online. Are there templates on the VTrust website, or are you referencing just, pretty much just Google CDF template and you'd obviously find it?
Yeah, Google's a pretty good resource for this because there's such a variety of products. There's not just one catch-all, and we don't have a database of like all the possibilities. So we do have some resources that can kind of guide people on this. I can send this to you later, actually.
Awesome.
It gives you an idea of what a construction data form should look like and things like that. But yeah, I mean it comes down to blueprints. Which part goes where, which material should each part be made of, which computer chip are you using in this product, and oftentimes the factory can give you a list of available things and their price points. So you don't have to like do everything as your homework and come to them and tell them, I came up with all of this, because, that's the job of maybe 7 different people. Most people will be willing to help you out to put these things together if you ask them to do it and help you out.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you find like you have, so let's say you have a golden sample of my newest aerator, and I go through 1 or 2 production runs with my factory, and then each time, I don't know, maybe you have something to add to this, but I usually get a random inspection, and I'll get a pre-shipment inspection. And in one of those inspections, you discover that it's not like you've discovered some, I'm going to call them flaws for lack of a better word, just something that does not line up with the golden sample. Do you also supply, and I'm asking this more, I think I know the answer, but I'm asking this more for the listeners, I know they're going to get a lot out of this, is do you make recommendations or provide like next steps that you think the buyer should take?
We can, yeah. If someone has a question of, where should I go from here, or how should I talk to my supplier about fixing this, we're definitely available for consultation in that regard, because we see a lot of this kind of stuff. So yeah, if you ever have a question after your inspection is done and something came up, if you don't know exactly how to handle it, talk to your account manager and ask them what their advice is for addressing this, because there can be different options for different people, and depends on what you're willing to accept, honestly.
Sure. What do you recommend like a proper etiquette for asking your supplier to I'm going to say cooperate with an inspection and instead of permission to do an inspection. But I find that a lot of people struggle with that. And it's kind of like, maybe I've been working with this person for a while, just stroke of luck, everything's been good enough. And I've not done an inspection to date, but you know, they listen to you on the podcast and they're like, yeah, it's not about trust. It's my business and I need to start doing this. How do you broach that subject without the factory feeling like, I don't know, offended?
Yeah. That's a good question. In Asia, you know, especially China, the concept of face is a big thing. It's like, you know, your personal image or your reputation. So it is important to know how to talk to them to get better cooperation. So usually, you know, kind of like a compliment sandwich is a good way to approach it. You know, start off with something you appreciate about them. It's like, I really like that you guys, you know, have a short lead time. You always get my orders out on time. I haven't had, you know, many complaints about the products, just a few things I want to keep an eye on. So I want to bring in a third-party inspection company to help me, you know, keep track of the quality of my products so that if something comes up, even accidentally, I know it's there. I know how many of them there are, and you and I can work together to fix it, and we can keep our cooperation going forward. So
I
make
love
sure they
that.
understand they like that.
You know, I am going to steal that from you. I don't know where you heard it from, but I am totally going to I'm going to steal that from you. That compliment sandwich line. That's great. I was actually speaking with Noemi, who's a co-host on the show, and we were discussing something. I think it was about a team member or something, and it was like, well, how you just. I think I spent an hour rambling to describe what you just, you know, encapsulated in compliment sandwich. Start with something you really like, then mention the thing that it is that you really want to address, and then follow that up with an awesome compliment. So
Right.
That's genius, man. I've not heard that said like that before. That is genius. I appreciate that.
I think I picked it up in middle school somewhere.
All right. Well, I need to go to that middle school.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples? I feel like people's minds work better. Obviously, you know, keeping confidentiality with any brands that you've worked on or, you know, stuff like that. But where someone did not have something in place to control product quality and you guys, I guess we could do two examples if possible. And it was catastrophic for them. Like it was really, really bad. It cost them their business. It doesn't have to be that severe, but there's that. And then another one where somebody brought you in and you guys caught something that could have been catastrophic. Do you have any like examples off the top of your head that you could give?
Yeah. First one, I believe this is also an Amazon seller. It was his, you know, first time working with this supplier, and he had a not super small, but not a large order. And, you know, something for Amazon sellers to keep an eye on when you don't have a big order, you have to be aware that, you know, you're not the highest priority for most factories. So you can try to be proactive about it. It's very important to do that. But yeah, this guy ordered a product, and a large component of the product was glass. And when we got there, almost all of the products were kind of scratched, and the glass part didn't look good at all. So essentially, the entire order had to be either reworked or scrapped. So he was pretty upset about that. He ended up changing his supplier after that. Another client that we had, I think we actually maybe mentioned this last time, but client had an order of, I think it was earphones, and he did not use a component data form with his supplier. He knew what it should be, but he wasn't very strict about the details with the factory. And the sample that they sent him had everything correct. And later, when we went to do the inspection, the inspector did an internal check for all the components. Turns out the supplier actually swapped out one of the microchips in there for a cheaper model, which basically ended up causing lower sound quality. And so the buyer, our client, would never have realized this until his product landed on the market, and his customers probably put up some bad reviews of his product because it sounds pretty cheap. So only because the inspector opened up the earphone and checked the components against his list of components that he gave us were we able to actually find that before it was shipped around the world.
Wow.
So yeah,
that seems very time consuming for the inspector. It must have to go through a great deal. I've always wondered about that. Was this a pre-shipment inspection, I imagine the person was doing, or was this a different type of inspection?
Yeah, pre-shipment inspection. Mm-hmm.
So everything at this point, products are made, they're in boxes, and they're ready to go. And this inspector needs to crack this thing open. So regardless of what the inspector finds, I imagine the thing is not just going to be put back together and put inside some packaging. So there's some damage there of products that you can't reuse just to satisfy the inspection, right?
Right. Yeah. Some things like that, like for example, a tiny earphone. Some of those tests or checks end up being a little bit destructive. So those samples will not be sent out. They're just used for inspection. If it can be put back together, like for example, a humidifier that's meant to be disassembled, that shouldn't be a problem. But some things, you have to crack them open to see what's inside and make sure everything is connected, has the right numbers on it, everything like that.
I always think of, you guys have like a suite of inspections. It feels like inspection types, and I've not scratched the surface. I imagine just as an Amazon seller that there's certain, like I love the container loading inspections, pre-shipment inspections, full factory audits, random inspections. I sometimes, like now that I've built my network in China, I don't use this one as much, but I call it the "does this place exist" inspection. You know what I mean? Like, what, as it pertains to controlling the quality of your products with a factory in China, what are the specific inspections that the person needs to, the inspection types that someone needs to bring to bear to maintain this quality?
Like you mentioned, PSI pre-shipment inspections, those are usually the most popular because it gives you a view of the entire order. If it's your first time working with a supplier, you're not really sure if they're following your plan correctly, then maybe a during production inspection would be a good idea. So you can get an idea of what they're actually doing in production before everything's done. And that way you can kind of catch a few things early and fix it. And your shipment won't be delayed as much as later if you find your entire order is screwed up. So those are the two primary ones that we would go with.
Awesome. And can we, just because my listeners won't forgive me, can we put, well, first let's talk about this. I think hopefully everyone listening to this, and you and I definitely know this, what is the cost of not doing an inspection? Like incalculable, right? It can be
maybe $81,000.
Yeah. I have an $81,000 cost to not doing an inspection, and sometimes it could be putting you out of business, affecting your quality of life. So that's a very high cost to not doing an inspection. Now, what I feel like my listeners though won't forgive me if we don't assign some, like, let's say dollar values in USD to some of these inspections that we've mentioned now. So a PSI, you called it, pre-shipment inspection. You got the fancy acronym. So like the PSI, how much is a PSI?
So PSI pre-shipment inspection. So 100% completion and at least 80% packed. So actually both these inspections, pre-shipment and during production, same rate. It's $268 per man day. So that's 8 or up to 8 hours on site. So that's one thing to look out for inspection companies. Some of them will count their traveling time toward that man day. So you want to make sure that you understand how much time they're actually going to be spending there. So our guys spend, up to 8 hours on site. That's one man day, even if their traveling time is 1 hour there, 1 hour back. So yeah, $268 for all those types of inspections, including your container loading supervision that you mentioned. But yeah, that's a standard rate for those inspections.
What about the golden sample? Getting that done, what does that entail, like cost wise?
For most samples, we can inspect one of those in our headquarters for $168. If it's a more complex item, then it could kind of depend on what all needs to go in there. But most items, especially for Amazon, fall into that 168 range.
I should have asked this earlier, but do you charge to continue warehousing the item afterwards, because you still need to have it as a golden sample for subsequent inspections in the future? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually we don't need to deal with that. If you send us a car, that might be another issue. But yeah,
what
most
if you
Amazon items
drive the car?
Send me an email. We can work something out.
Awesome. So extraordinarily, I call that extraordinarily low prices. They are very competitive. I saw somebody out there, I think it was a pre-shipment inspection. I will prep your goods and everything for, it was like $50. And that just, I mean, that terrified me. That is an ambush like that.
Yeah, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, down here we call that dry land in the Everglades, or $5 Rolexes. Yeah. Like, something is really, really wrong there.
I mean, you can hire some, college kid to go visit your factory, but in the end, you're hiring a quality control service, so you shouldn't be guessing about the quality of that service, honestly.
Absolutely. Mitch, what did I not ask you, or what did you feel like maybe we should have touched on as it pertains to controlling the quality of your products?
Last aspect, I mean, it ties in with the first two. Your golden sample, your spec sheets, which could be bill of materials, your component data form, or tech pack for apparel. So the last thing is to make a list of all of the defects that you find in various shipments, because they're categorized into critical, major, and minor defects. Keep track of those, how many of them are. They're listed right there in your reports so that you can communicate that to your supplier. Tell them, please focus on this more. Don't worry about that. And that way you can track the progress of your goods. Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? So you don't want to be in the dark about that. That's just a basic statistic that you should have to keep track of things. And we actually do that for you. Like if you have an online account, we have a dashboard that accumulates everything. You can put it into a graph. It shows you different suppliers, their defect rates. So it's a really important statistic to keep track of, so you can make plans for next month, next quarter.
What do you think is the most common culprit for, I guess, deteriorating metrics, as far as defects that are starting to pop up in your products? Do you have like a most popular culprit for that?
I would say, especially recently with high demand for everything, the push for faster orders is really taking a toll on quality, especially with shortage of raw materials and things. Suppliers are feeling the pressure too, so they're looking for chances to cut their own costs. So when you notice that, when shipping costs are going up, when raw material prices are going up, you should be paying more attention to quality, because someone is going to be trying to save money in one place or another, and you don't want the short end of the stick to be on your side.
That makes a ton of sense. You mentioned something though right now about wanting faster delivery time. So with the massive delays in shipping and the backlogs at the factories, I'm starting to hear people say, listen, the factory says, like, I've never heard a factory in China say, no, we're not accepting your money right now. But I'm starting to hear people saying, look, like you can send us the money, but we're not going to start working on this for like a month.
Right.
What I see for someone that is ignorant to the inspection quality control process, what sort of delays does working with a third party inspection service such as VTrust cause, if any?
I mean, if you're being proactive, you give yourself a few days between the end of the order and the shipping date, it shouldn't be noticeable. We usually need about 3 days before the inspection to get things set up. The big problem comes when we find a problem you weren't expecting and your shipping date is tomorrow, and you've got to either accept the problematic items or ask your factory to rework them and cancel your shipping. So give yourself a buffer, about 3, 4, maybe even 5 days if it's a complex item. That way, if problems do come up, you have a little bit of flexible time in there that you can work around and still get your items on time.
I love it. What I think, if anything, it makes sense to add an additional inspection in there. Like if you, I mean, that's what I'm moving towards. And it's like, look, I want to catch anything as soon as possible, especially if it's a new supplier. I don't want to find out with my boat scheduled to go in 3 weeks that we need to rework something, because I'm also going to schedule an inspection for that rework. So, okay. Last time you were on the show, you mentioned your favorite book, and I believe it was The Rational Optimist, Matt Ridley?
Yep.
Was it? Yeah.
Matt Ridley, I think. Yeah.
Are you reading anything currently?
Yeah. Actually, last time you brought up Freakonomics, and I had read that in the past, and I actually revisited their second book, Freakonomics 2, I guess it's called.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, they've got a second book and maybe even a third one, but the second one's better than the third. So,
I'm definitely going to grab it.
Yeah, pick up one of those.
Yeah, you have a podcast too.
Oh, that's right, they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so check that out. I mean, listen to this one first in your episode, then that one.
Right. Yeah. Top of the playlist.
Yeah, absolutely. Mitch, you were amazing. I look forward to having you back on the show for the third time, talking about a totally different inspection type that can save Amazon sellers a lot of money. There will be a link. I guess you'll send me. There was a link to some resources on the VTrust website that I'll be able to link to. Plus, I have a link with a code for any first-time users of VTrust services to where you can get a cool discount. That's always a nice thing, especially when you first start working with somebody. So a lot of cool resources are going to be in the show notes of this section. What is the best way that people can get a hold of you, Mitch?
You can send me an email. My full name, Mitchell, Mitchell at vtrust.com. And you can also visit our website, get a look at some of the things we can do to help you out, and drop us a line anytime, and we're happy to help you with any inspection problems that you might have. Awesome stuff. I'll talk to everybody next week. Thank you, Mitch. Sounds good. Cheers, Carlos. Look forward to next time. It was fun sharing this episode with you. If you found value in what you've heard, please show your love with a subscribe, rate, and review of the show. Until next time.